High Queen Cathraxis sat on her crystalline throne, her iridescent scales gleaming under the purple lights of the imperial chamber. Her long fingers drummed impatiently on the armrest as yet another military commander trembled before her, bringing stories she did not want to hear. "Your Majesty," the commander's voice quivered, his secondary antennae twitching nervously. "3 more outposts in the Perseus arm have gone dark. The survivors, they all tell the same story." "Enough." Cathraxis' voice echoed through the chamber. "I will not waste my time with fairy tales about a human warrior. Humans have been extinct for 300 years. We made sure of that." But even as she dismissed the commander, a seed of doubt grew in her mind. 15 outposts in the past month alone, each attack following the same pattern, precise, methodical, and executed with terrifying efficiency. No Zarkonian moved like that. No known species could breach their defenses so easily. The queen rose from her throne and walked to the massive window overlooking her capital city. Tall spires of black metal reached toward the twin moons, their surfaces reflecting the red light of the setting sun. Her empire had stood undefeated for centuries. The very idea that a single warrior, much less a human, could threaten that peace was laughable. "General Valtek," she called to her most trusted military advisor, "show me the security footage from the latest attack." The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the chamber. The grainy footage showed the interior of Outpost 7, one of their most secure facilities. At first, everything seemed normal, guards at their posts, security systems active. Then the lights flickered. When they came back on 3 seconds later, 2 guards were already down. The cameras caught a glimpse of something moving, too fast for normal vision. A shadow that flowed like water between cover points. The remaining guards fired their plasma rifles, but they might as well have been shooting at a ghost. Thraxis leaned forward, her 6 eyes narrowing as she studied the footage. The attacker moved with impossible precision, as if they knew the layout of the base by heart. One by one, the guards fell. Not dead, she noticed with surprise, but unconscious, clean hits to pressure points that shouldn't be known to any species but their own. "Freeze image," she commanded. The hologram stopped on a frame showing a reflection in a metal wall. The figure wore armor unlike anything in her empire's database, ancient-looking by their standards, but modified with strange technology. Most disturbing was the symbol barely visible on the shoulder plate, the faded emblem of the long-dead Earth Defense Force. "Impossible," Cathraxis whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. She had grown up hearing stories about human warriors, how they had fought to the last during the Great Purge, displaying strength and skill that seemed to defy their fragile bodies. But they were just stories, meant to glorify her ancestors' victory. Weren't they? The final moments of the footage showed the intruder accessing the base's central computer. No alarms triggered, no defenses activated. They downloaded something, and then the figure turned to face the camera directly. Though their face was hidden behind a tactical visor, the message was clear. They'd wanted to be seen, wanted her to know. Thraxis felt a chill run down her spine as the figure made a gesture she had never seen before. 2 fingers pointed at their own eyes, then at the camera. A human gesture, a warning. Just before the footage ended, the intruder left something on the console. The camera zoomed in on a small metal object, an ancient human military badge, perfectly preserved. Below it, written in flawless Zarkonian script, was a message that made the Queen's blood run cold. "The dead remember, do you?" The massive royal ship descended through storm clouds towards Outpost 12, its black hull reflecting lightning strikes. High Queen Cathraxis stood at the command deck, her expression grim. She had come to see the destruction with her own eyes. "Your Majesty, the area is secured," reported Captain Dex, his armored tail twitching nervously. "But you should prepare yourself. It's worse than the reports suggested." She wasn't prepared. The outpost's main gate had been torn open from the inside. Her elite dark-scale guards, the strongest warriors in the Empire, lay scattered across the courtyard. None were dead, but each had been disabled with surgical precision. Broken limbs, dislocated joints, crushed pressure points. The human had turned her best soldiers into a message. "Show me the security center," Cathraxis ordered, stepping carefully around her fallen warriors. The queen moved through the facility, noting every detail. No random destruction, no wasted movement. Each piece of damaged equipment had been carefully selected. This wasn't violence for the sake of violence. This was methodical. The security center told the real story. Every screen was intact except one. The main monitor displayed a spider web of cracks, with a single point of impact at the center. When they powered up the system, the queen understood why. "Playing last recorded footage," announced the technician. The video showed the human warrior in combat, but unlike the grainy images from previous attacks, this footage was crystal clear. Cathraxis watched, transfixed, as the figure moved through her elite guards like water through rocks. The human used the Dark Scale's own strength against them, redirecting their powerful attacks with minimal movement. It was like watching a deadly dance. "Freeze," Cathraxis commanded. The image stopped on a perfect frame of the warrior. The armor was definitely Earth military, but heavily modified. Patches of modern technology had been grafted onto the ancient plating. Most surprising was the size. The human was smaller than any of the guards, yet had defeated them all. "What did they access?" the queen asked, turning to her intelligence officer. "That's the strange part, Your Majesty. They downloaded personnel files, historical records, training manuals. They spent more time gathering information than fighting." Thraxis walked to the damaged main screen, running her fingers over the impact point. The crack pattern wasn't random. It formed a perfect spiral. She had seen this pattern before, in ancient war records. It was a human military symbol for infinite pursuit. "My queen." A guard burst into the room. "We found something in the command center. You need to see this." The command center's holodeble was still active, displaying a star map of the Empire, but it had been modified. Dozens of locations were marked with pulsing red dots, bases, outposts, and facilities that hadn't been attacked yet. The human wasn't just showing their previous targets. They were announcing their future ones. In the center of the map, a small device sat blinking. When Cathraxis approached, it projected a message in the air, written in both human English and perfect Zarkonian. "You took everything from us. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for truth. Follow the trail, or more of your warriors will learn how myths become real." The queen stared at the message, her 6 eyes reflecting the glowing text. She had been raised on stories of how her ancestors had defeated the humans through superior strength and technology. But watching that combat footage, seeing the precise planning behind each attack, she was starting to understand that her people had never truly known their enemy. "Orders, Your Majesty," Captain Dex asked quietly. Thraxis straightened to her full height, her scales shifting color with determination. "Prepare my personal guard. If this human wants to teach us about myths, then we will learn. But they're about to discover that queens can hunt too." Space shimmered as 5 Zarkonian battleships dropped out of hyperspace. At the lead, High Queen Cathraxis' royal vessel cut through the darkness like a black arrow. Her best tracking fleet had been hunting the human for 3 days straight. "Target detected," announced the sensor officer, his claws dancing across the control panel. Moving through the asteroid field in Sector 7, the queen leaned forward in her command chair, all 6 eyes fixed on the tactical display. A small ship darted between the massive rocks, moving in patterns that should have been impossible. No autopilot could navigate like that. The human was flying manually. "Spring the trap," Cathraxis ordered. "All ships, move into position." Her fleet spread out in a perfect pentagon formation, their most effective hunting pattern. They had used it to catch countless enemies over the centuries. No single ship could escape the overlapping fields of their tractor beams. The human ship suddenly stopped behind a large asteroid. "We have them cornered," Captain Dex said with satisfaction. They have nowhere to. Warning alarms screamed across all 5 ships. The asteroid field was coming alive. Dozens of small devices attached to the rocks started blinking red. Mines, someone shouted. But they weren't normal mines. Each explosion released a cloud of metallic dust that stuck to the ship's sensors, blinding them. The human had turned the entire asteroid field into a trap, and the Zarkonians had flown right into it. All ships maintained formation. Thraxis commanded, but in the confusion, a shadow passed between 2 of her vessels. The human ship shot through their formation like a bullet. As it passed, it fired something at each battleship. Not weapons, data transmitters. Every ship's communication system suddenly activated, playing the same message on all frequencies. Your ancestors wrote a beautiful story about their victory. Let me tell you the ugly truth they buried. Screens across the fleet flickered to life, showing ancient footage the Queen had never seen before. Zarkonian ships attacking Earth colonies that had already surrendered. Civilian shelters being destroyed. Things that weren't in any official history. Lies. Thraxis hissed, but doubt crept into her voice. The footage looked real. Too real. The human ship was getting away, but they'd left something else behind. Each battleship's computer now contained a set of coordinates, leading to different locations across the Empire. Next to each set was a date from 300 years ago, during the final days of the war with Earth. Your Majesty, her intelligence officer called out. These coordinates, they match locations of sealed military archives, files that even I don't have access to. Thraxis felt cold anger building inside her. The human wasn't just attacking their bases, they were attacking their history, exposing things that had been hidden for centuries. Follow them, she commanded. Don't let them. Another alert sounded. The human ship was heading straight for a small moon. Scans showed massive energy readings building up around it. Impossible, the science officer whispered. They've converted the moon's orbital satellites into a makeshift jump gate. We didn't even know that was possible. The human ship accelerated toward the improvised gate. Behind it, the charges they'd planted in the asteroid field started detonating in sequence, creating a wave of debris that would block any pursuit. Before jumping to hyperspace, they transmitted one final message. Your empire is built on buried bones. Keep following the coordinates, Queen Thraxis. The dead have so many stories to tell. The ship vanished in a flash of light, leaving the Queen staring at the coordinates on her screen. For the first time in her life, she felt something she never expected: respect for an enemy, mixed with a growing fear of what other truths this human warrior might uncover. Plot a course to the first set of coordinates, she ordered quietly. It's time we learned what really happened 300 years ago. The ancient data core hummed to life in Thraxis' private chamber. Her claws shook slightly as she inserted the crystal key she'd found at the first set of coordinates. The holographic display flickered, showing a recording that was 3 centuries old. An elderly Zarkonian scientist appeared, his scales dull with age. The Queen gasped. She recognized him from her history lessons. This was Dr. Vexthor, one of the Empire's greatest minds during the war with Earth. If you're watching this, the recording began. Then someone survived. Someone found them. My children, my precious humans. Thraxis leaned forward, her hearts beating faster. The scientist continued, his voice heavy with guilt. I couldn't stop the purge, but I could save a few. The brightest, the strongest, 50 humans, preserved in cryo-sleep. I hid them in a facility deep within the frozen wastes of NAC-7, a place even our people forgot existed. The recording showed images of cryopods, each containing a sleeping human. The Queen's eyes fixed on one pod in particular. The nameplate read, Commander Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Force Special Operations. They ordered us to destroy everything. Dr. Vexthor continued, his voice breaking. Not just their weapons or armies. They wanted us to erase every trace of human achievement. Their art, their music, their incredible capacity for innovation. But I saw something in humans that my people refused to acknowledge, an unbreakable spirit. Security footage began playing alongside the scientist's confession. It showed the frozen waste facility 5 years ago. A routine mining operation had accidentally drilled into the hidden chamber. The cryopods activated automatically. Thraxis watched as the humans awoke. Most were scientists, engineers, and civilians. But one, Commander Chen, immediately took charge. The footage showed her protecting the others, helping them escape using skills that 300 years of frozen sleep hadn't dulled. She was supposed to be a myth, Thraxis whispered, watching Chen move with the same deadly grace she'd seen in recent attacks. The recording changed again, showing Dr. Vexthor making his final entry. To whoever finds this, the humans I saved aren't seeking revenge. I taught them our language, left them our history. They want to understand why. Why did we really destroy Earth? The official records speak of human aggression, of a necessary war. But I've hidden the truth in fragments across the Empire. Commander Chen, if you're watching this, follow the trail. Find the truth about Project Zero. It wasn't just about destroying humanity. It was about... The recording cut off abruptly. Thraxis sat in silence, her mind racing. Everything she'd been taught about the war, about human nature, about her own people's history, all of it was being questioned. Her private communicator chimed. A message appeared, written in the same perfect Zarkonian script she'd seen before. Now you know I'm real, Queen Thraxis. The others are safe, building a new life far from your empire. I stayed behind to find the truth. Your scientist tried to warn us, but he died before finishing his message. What is Project Zero? Why did your ancestors really destroy Earth? Keep following the coordinates. The next piece of truth will cost you another base. The Queen stared at the message for a long time. She thought about the humans' tactics, disabling rather than killing, gathering information rather than seeking revenge. Commander Chen wasn't just a warrior. She was a guardian, protecting both her surviving people and a truth buried in the Empire's darkest secrets. Thraxis made her decision. She opened a secure channel to her flagship. Prepare for immediate departure, she ordered, and remove all lethal weapons. The next time we meet this human, we're going to talk. The ancestral archives loomed before High Queen Thraxis like a mountain of dark metal, reaching up through the planet's constant storms. Lightning reflected off its surface, making the ancient buildings seem alive. This was the heart of Zarkonian history, and according to her latest intelligence, Commander Chen's next target. The human ship has been detected. Captain Dex reported, his voice tense. They're using our old supply tunnels to approach the archive. Of course they are, Thraxis said quietly. Just like they used our own tactics against us. They've studied us better than we ever studied them. The Queen stood at the archive's main security station, watching dozens of screens. She had replaced most of her guards with automated systems. No more warriors would face the humans' precise attacks. But something was bothering her about the security feeds. These tunnels, she murmured, studying the layout. They're too obvious. Commander Chen wouldn't. Alarms screamed throughout the facility. But not from the tunnels, from above. Somehow, the human had used the storm itself as cover to land on the archive's roof. Magnificent, Thraxis whispered, genuine admiration in her voice. Then she noticed something else. The human wasn't trying to hide anymore. The security cameras caught clear images of Commander Chen moving through the facility. The warrior's armor was scratched and patched, showing signs of 5 years of constant use. But she moved with the same deadly grace as ever. Guards found themselves disabled with quick strikes before they could even raise their weapons. Security systems were bypassed with codes that shouldn't exist. Thraxis watched Chen reach the main archive door. Instead of hacking it, the human stood before the ancient DNA scanner and removed her helmet. The Queen gasped. Commander Sarah Chen's face showed the same determination she'd seen in Dr. Vexthor's recordings, but there was something else in her eyes. Not hatred, but sadness. Chen placed her hand on the scanner. Impossibly, it glowed green. Security override accepted. Dr. Vexthor's emergency protocol, the system announced. The Queen understood. The old scientist hadn't just saved the humans. He'd given them a way to find the truth. She made her decision. All guards, fall back, Cathraxis ordered. Clear the archive. I'll handle this myself. She found Commander Chen in the deepest level of the archive, surrounded by holographic displays showing fragments of ancient data. The human warrior turned slowly, her helmet tucked under one arm. Neither reached for a weapon. You could have accessed this place any time in the past 5 years, Fraxis said. Why wait until now? Because I needed you to follow the trail, Chen replied in perfect Zarkonian. To see what I've seen. To question what you've been taught. Look at this. She gestured to a particular display. It showed a massive project file labeled Protocol 0 in ancient script, but parts were missing. Corrupted. Your scientists tried to warn us, Chen continued. Something happened before the war. Something that made your ancestors destroy Earth. Not because they wanted to, but because they were afraid of what we'd discovered. The Queen moved closer to the display. What did we discover? That's what I need your help to find out. Chen's voice softened. I've spent 5 years proving I could have destroyed your military if I wanted to. Instead, I've gathered information. Because Dr. Vexthor taught us something important about your people. You value truth, even when it hurts. Cathraxis looked at the human warrior who had become legend. Not a mindless killer seeking revenge, but a protector seeking understanding. She made her choice. Show me everything you found, the Queen said. It's time we learned the truth together. Deep within the ancestral archives, High Queen Cathraxis and Commander Chen stood before a massive holographic display. Ancient data streams flowed around them like rivers of light, each containing pieces of a hidden truth. There, Chen pointed to a particular file. Project Zero wasn't just one thing. It was spread across different systems to hide it. Your scientist found parts of it before he died. The Queen watched as Chen's fingers danced across the control panel. The human's movements were different now, no longer the deadly precision of a warrior, but the careful touch of a researcher. Stop, Cathraxis suddenly said. That symbol. I've seen it before. On the screen was a strange marking. A spiral within a spiral. The same pattern appeared in ancient medical records, temple writings, and military documents. Always hidden, always in the background. It started appearing in our records 3,000 years ago. The Queen continued, her scales shifting color with growing unease, around the time our empire began its great expansion. Chen nodded. And that's exactly when your people's behavior changed. Dr. Vexthor's notes showed how your civilization went from peaceful explorers to aggressive conquerors in less than a generation. More files appeared on the screen. Brain scans of ancient Zarkonians showed strange patterns. Tiny spiral structures that shouldn't be there. Similar scans from recent times showed the same patterns, but larger, more developed. We noticed it too late, Chen said quietly. Earth's scientists discovered these patterns in visiting Zarkonian diplomats. They realized something was controlling your people's minds, something that had been growing, spreading for thousands of years. The Queen felt a chill run through her body. The spirals. They're not just symbols, are they? They're parasites, Chen confirmed. Microscopic creatures that attach to neural pathways. They influenced your ancestors, pushed them toward violence, toward expansion. Because each new conquered world meant new hosts. Cathraxis staggered back as memories flooded her mind. The headaches she'd experienced since childhood. The whispers she sometimes heard in quiet moments. The urge to conquer, to expand, to destroy. She had always thought it was natural, but it wasn't her at all. Earth found a way to detect them, Chen continued, pulling up more files. And worse for the parasites, we found a way to remove them safely. That's why Earth had to be destroyed, not by your people's choice, but but by their invisible masters. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the archive. Security screens showed elite troops approaching. Not the Queen's guards, but soldiers she had never seen before. They moved with unnatural synchronization. "They're coming," Cathraxis whispered. "The parasites know we've found the truth. They're using hosts they've completely controlled." Chen quickly began downloading files to her suit's computer. "Your scientist left one last gift, the frequency that can disrupt the parasites. But we need time to synthesize it." The Queen straightened to her full height, her royal armor gleaming. "Then we'll make time. My warriors are still loyal to their queen, parasites or not." "You'll fight your own people?" Chen asked, though her hands were already checking her weapons. "They're not my people while those things control them," Cathraxis replied. "Not any more than I am truly myself with this parasite in my mind. Will you fight beside me, Commander?" Chen smiled, the first time the Queen had seen her do so. A human warrior and a Zarkonian queen, fighting together to save both their peoples. Dr. Vexthor would have loved to see this. The doors to the archive chamber began to spark as the controlled troops tried to cut through. Cathraxis and Chen took position on either side, warrior and queen united against a common enemy. "Ready?" the Queen asked. Chen's helmet slid into place, just like you said in the stories. "Let's make some myths." The archive doors exploded inward in a shower of molten metal. Through the smoke, possessed Zarkonian troops marched with perfect, unnatural synchronization. Their eyes glowed with an eerie spiral pattern. The parasites were no longer hiding. Queen Cathraxis moved first, her royal combat training showing its worth. She disabled 3 soldiers with quick strikes, careful not to kill her own people. Beside her, Commander Chen was a blur of motion, her human combat style perfectly complementing the Queen's movements. "The download is at 60%. Chen called out, checking her suit's computer between takedowns. "We need 3 more minutes." More controlled troops poured in. These ones were different. Their bodies were twisted, changed by complete parasite control. The spirals weren't just in their eyes now. They showed through their scales in glowing patterns. "My queen," one of them spoke, but the voice was wrong. Like many voices speaking together. "Why do you resist us? We gave your people greatness. We made you conquerors. You made us slaves." Cathraxis snarled, standing protectively in front of the computer terminal. "You murdered Earth because humans could expose you." Chen's combat style shifted. The Queen watched in amazement as the humans started using Zarkonian military forms, movements that should have taken years to master. "Dr. Vexthor taught us everything," Chen explained between strikes. "Your true history, your combat arts, your culture before the parasites." The possessed troops pressed forward. Cathraxis felt pressure building in her head, the parasite in her own mind trying to take control. She fought it, focusing on what she'd learned about her people's real history. 80%, Chen shouted. Then she saw the Queen struggling. "Fight it, Cathraxis. Remember who you really are." A possessed soldier got through their defense, striking at the computer. Chen took the hit instead, her armor cracking. But she didn't fall. The human warrior stood firm, protecting both the Queen and their chance for freedom. That sight triggered something in Cathraxis' mind. Not the parasite's whispers of conquest and destruction, but older memories, memories of her people as explorers, artists, builders. The pressure in her head began to fade. The parasites are weakening, she realized. They feed on negative emotions, fear, hatred, aggression. But positive emotions, cooperation, friendship, weaken them, Chen finished, understanding. She reached out and grabbed the Queen's hand. Together then. Cathraxis nodded. Fighting side by side, they pushed back against the controlled troops. Human and Zarkonian combat styles blended into something new, something beautiful rather than destructive. With each collaborative move, more possessed soldiers began to hesitate, the spiral patterns in their eyes flickering. Download complete. Chen's suit computer chimed. Accessing Dr. Vexthor's final gift, the disruption frequency. The human warrior activated her suit's speakers. A complex wave of sound filled the chamber, not just one frequency, but many layered together. The queen recognized parts of it. Zarkonian healing harmonies mixed with human music. The effect was immediate. The possessed troops collapsed, the spiral patterns fading from their eyes. Kithraxis felt the parasite in her own mind shrivel and die, taking with it the whispers of violence that had haunted her since childhood. As the soldiers began to wake, free for the first time in their lives, Chen checked the computer one last time. "The frequency is broadcasting across your entire empire," she said softly. "Every Zarkonian will be free within hours." Thraxis looked at her freed people, then at the human warrior who had made it possible. "How did you know it would work? That we could overcome them together?" Chen smiled. "Because Dr. Vexthor believed in both our peoples. He knew that human determination and Zarkonian wisdom together could overcome any enemy, even ones we couldn't see." The queen nodded, feeling truly herself for the first time. "Then let's finish what he started. It's time to rebuild both our worlds, together." 1 month after the liberation of the Zarkonian Empire, High Queen Kithraxis stood before the great window in her throne room. But now she wasn't alone. Commander Sarah Chen stood beside her, both of them watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. "The last of the 49 survivors have returned," Chen reported, her battle-worn armor now bearing both human and Zarkonian symbols. "They're bringing scientists, engineers, artists, everything we preserved from Earth." The queen nodded, her scales shimmering with their natural colors, no longer dulled by the parasite's influence. "And our people are ready to welcome them. The parasites took so much from both our species. It's time to rebuild together." On the platforms below, humans and Zarkonians worked side by side. The Empire's cities were being transformed. Where there had once been weapons factories, now research centers grew. Military barracks became cultural exchange centers. The archives, once sealed and guarded, now stood open to all. "Dr. Vexthor would be proud," Chen said softly, watching a young human teaching a group of Zarkonian children about Earth music. "He believed our peoples could learn from each other." And he was right. Kithraxis turned to face her friend, no longer just an ally, but someone who had fought beside her, bled with her, helped free her people. "The parasites thought forcing us to destroy Earth would end their greatest threat. Instead, they created something stronger." Chen smiled. "They never understood. Humans don't break under pressure. We adapt. And your people, once freed from control, showed the same strength." Alerts chimed softly as more ships appeared in the sky. These were different. Massive colony vessels, built by combining human and Zarkonian technology. They would carry mixed crews to find new worlds, not to conquer, but to explore and understand. "The council is ready," a guard announced from the doorway. Kithraxis and Chen walked together to the great chamber where representatives from both species waited. The queen took her place at the center, but now her throne was part of a circle, not raised above others. 300 years ago, she began, her voice carrying to all. "A terrible mistake was made. Controlled by parasites, my people destroyed Earth and nearly wiped out humanity. We thought humans were just stories after that, myths to tell our children." She gestured to Chen. "But one human warrior showed us the truth, not through revenge or destruction, but through wisdom and courage. She proved that our people's greatest strength isn't in fighting each other, it's in standing together." Chen stepped forward. "The parasites are gone, but they infected many worlds before we stopped them. There are others out there who need help, need freedom. Will we answer that call?" The chamber erupted in cheers from both species. The first joint mission was already planned. A fleet of ships would carry the liberation frequency to other infected civilizations, freeing them as Earth and Zarkon had been freed. "It won't be easy," Kithraxis said later, as she and Chen watched the sun set. Some will fear us working together. The parasites had many servants, and they'll resist. Let them, Chen replied firmly. They thought destroying Earth would end humanity. Instead, it proved what we're capable of. And now, she looked at her friend, the warrior queen who had helped change everything. Now we're not just humans anymore. We're not just Zarkonians. We're something new. The queen smiled. We're proof that the greatest myths come true not through force, but through understanding, through friendship. Together, they watched the stars appear, not as distant targets to conquer, but as new worlds to explore, new peoples to meet and help. The human warrior and the alien queen had turned an ancient enemy into humanity's greatest ally, proving that sometimes the most powerful weapons aren't the ones that destroy, but the ones that bring people together. The story of the warrior and the queen became legend, but not as a tale of revenge or war. It became a story of hope, of redemption, of two peoples finding strength in unity rather than conflict. And somewhere, perhaps, Dr. Vexthor was smiling, knowing his faith in both species had been proven right.